Hey, what is up, everyone? Welcome to Market Psychology 101, where we look for value in the markets when there's fear and are cautious when there's greed. And today we're going to be taking a look at Bitcoin and the crypto markets in general, seeing where we're at, where we might be going. And as you look at the fear and greed index, currently we are in extreme greed at an 84, so be extremely cautious. And over the last week or so, we've even gotten as high as 90. So throughout the last year, you can see we've been ranging, but generally going up in greed. And if we take a look, after we bottomed out in fear in June of 22, we have been trending up ever since. So what I've noted before is that when we've dipped in fear, that tended to be a leading indicator because the true bottom was in November. And when we peaked in greed in December 22 or in December 2020, that's when Bitcoin was making a new all-time high at that time. The true top wasn't until March, April. And the the overall all-time high that we just passed was in November 21. So I am wondering if we are going to hang around in greed, because when we do that for a while, there tends to be better highs up ahead. We hung around in greed here for a while and then eventually got higher highs. Same with all this fear. Eventually, the lows came later. When we spike, it tends to be more of a one-to-one correlation. Going over to the Bitcoin rainbow chart, something I've noted before is that at each halving, you can see we move up a zone. The fire sale zone, the buy zone, second halving, the last halving we had, the accumulate zone. This one I've been wondering if we'd be in the still cheap zone, which the halving's coming up around April 22nd. Let's see how close we can get there. Sometimes this page will be a little bit jumpy. That's close enough. So that green box, that would put us around 52.5 to 69,000. So currently we are at the very upper end of that. We'll see if Bitcoin sells down a little bit into the halving. It's possible. This may be the first time that we break from this pattern. And for those of you who don't know what the halving is, every 4 years, about when Bitcoin has a halving, half the amount of Bitcoin is mined by the miners. And so it's theorized that that creates a supply crunch, which then drives up demand. So take from that what you will. This rainbow chart, it is Bitcoin on a logarithmic scale because it's going up by factors of 10. If we took a look at Bitcoin overall and just zoomed out and took it off of log scale, this is what it'd look like. And this is why people talk about super cycles, because when we go up past prior all-time highs, I mean, this is the 2017 all-time high, and I remember being there at the time. This seemed crazy, and then we still went way higher. So something else to note while we're here, these fibs, when you draw a fib scale from the prior high to low and you see where some of the extensions are, here's the 3.618. That was around where we topped, pretty close to there when Bitcoin broke out and had its first top. And if you notice right here, this was 2020, December 2020. We just looked at that because when we were in peak greed, that's when Bitcoin broke the prior all-time high in 2017. And so because we're breaking the prior all-time high, that's why we're so high up here. But that does not mean that a much higher high isn't coming later, because at the time when we were breaking, Bitcoin was at around 17, 18,000. And then very quickly it ran up to 65,000 from December to May. So about 5 months, 4 or 5 months, if that. Actually, you could say 3 to where we were truly up here. So things can get crazy pretty quick. Alternatively, this may also be a mid-cycle top if we are to repeat the 4-year cycles. 4-year cycles, it's about the time in between peaks. This was the true peak. A lot of people have been wondering if we're going to get an early 4 year cycle because this was earlier, but that would still place us in early 2025. So if we are topping out right here, that's new, relatively speaking. However, if you go back to the first Bitcoin top, so as you can see right here, when we topped in June of 2011, the next top did not come for 2.5 years. And so this wouldn't be the first time that the next cycle top is shorter in time. So where would 2.5 years put us from this peak? So that would be 2 years from that date would be November of 23, but then another half year, that would put us around May of this year. So this range of 2.5 years would mean that the current top would be somewhere in or near May. And the reason I think that's very entirely possible is because the Fed has been talking about rate cuts coming in the summer. And if we go over to what happens when the Fed cuts rates, well, this was when they first cut rates after holding it higher for longer. COVID came and did dump the markets, and then we had obviously quantitative easing, money printing. That was a flash crash recession, black swan type event, not your normal run of the mill recession. But when we go back to the dot-com bubble and the great financial crisis, the red lines, those are the rate cuts, that happened pretty much near the top. And it also happened when, or very close, within like a month or two of when the yield curve was uninverting. And for those of you who don't know, the yield curve, when rates are raised, that changes the prices of the bonds. And when the bonds go very high, that inverts the yield curve. I'm dumbing it down as much as I can. When it uninverts, there's typically always a recession. So this was, it inverted a little bit underneath that zero line. We had 2020 crash. This is great financial crisis. Obviously the dot-com bubble. So going back to the S&P 500 here, rates were raised, held higher for longer. First rate cut, we didn't see the true bottom until about 20 months to 2 years. So do know that when they first cut rates, the market may be going down for a while. And in both these instances, it took 2 years. The other reason I think that matters, bringing it back to Bitcoin, is how far away has the bottom been from some of these peaks? Well, we had this peak in 2013. You can see at the bottom there, it says December 13. And here it's almost 2 years, even shorter than that, where we had the bottom. And this would be 2 years after. So like a year and a half. Here, this was the top in December of 2017. The true bottom was not too far away, but it was about a year after that. And then obviously we had COVID. So from this top that we had in April of 21, we didn't have the bottom until about a year and a half to 2 years later, when it was December 22. So if the Fed is thinking about first cutting rates in the summer, then maybe the bottom is a year and a half, 2 years from then. And so rate cuts in the middle of 24 would mean that around the summer of 26, somewhere near there, give or take 3 to 6 months, would be the bottom. So just something to keep in mind. And I mean, even me saying that, I'll just draw a line there and see what happens. So June of 26, and I'll color that green because maybe the markets will be tanked around that time, and this will be the time to start buying in, whether it be for stocks or crypto. And for any of you who are new to the channel and you're wondering, what is this halving year 33% up all about? Something I've just noted before is that each halving year, I'm talking about January 1st to December 31st, Bitcoin, the price went up 250%. Then it went up about half that the next time we had a halving, 130%, so about half. And then the next time it went up 65% until we had quantitative easing. And then, of course, it went nuts. And so, if we were to have half of that, I wondered if Bitcoin would finish at about that 57, 56,000 level. It looks like because we made all-time highs recently that, it is entirely possible that we may have a blow-off top, cycle top early this time around, close to where the halving is. However, that will eventually form a bubble that pops. And so I am curious to see what if we do finish over here? Even if we have an early top, maybe we come back down over here. And as far as these red and green lines, that's just where I have my buy zones, where I don't want to miss out on stocks or crypto. Full disclosure, because Bitcoin is in all-time high area right now, I am not buying. And I try to preach on this channel as often as I can that time in the market is more important than timing the market. So if you are new to crypto, you are taking it, how should I put this? You're taking an educated gamble if you're trying to buy crypto now. You should have obviously been buying over the last 2 years. And we have different indicators that we look at here. The buy sell signal indicator, this is on the weekly. I start by looking on the monthly. We had 2 green dots on the weekly. We've only had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, well, 6, but let's just say 5 since the bottom. So there has been opportunities to buy. That's just Bitcoin, but I have been looking at a lot of altcoins as well. Going over to alt season, this is something I wanted to show you guys. This is the alt season index or altcoin year index on blockchaincenter.net. And when you flip the scale over to the yearly, excuse me, when you flip it over to the yearly, you can see that we're still down in the Bitcoin year. But what's curious about that is that when Bitcoin made that mid-cycle top, that was around June of 19, and we were very heavy into Bitcoin season, according to this chart. That was right here. When we were breaking all-time highs, December of 2020, where were we? So December of 2020, we were right here. We spiked a little bit. We had a mini alt season, and we have had that, even though it doesn't show up on here. There have been many alts that have done 2, 3, 4x since their bottoms, so that's pretty good. So we spiked up before that time into September of 2020, but when we were breaking the prior all-time highs of 2017, that was here. And you will note that we finished this trend down, this move, and then we started a new trend up. And this was the true top for many alts. Well, as you can see over here, we had this trend down, a little bit of a spike up, not too much down, and now it looks like we are starting another trend up. Does it not? So maybe this will do some shorter spikes and overall it'll look like a line here, or my guess is this is going to keep going higher. And how high, who knows? Once this Bitcoin money rolls over into alts, it is going to be crazy time because there will be a lot of altcoins, and it's hard to know which, that are going to go up 10, 20x out of nowhere within a week or two. And you'll have to be ready to sell if that happens to you. Do know that for altcoins, they are not guaranteed to pass their prior all-time highs. Here's an example of an altcoin that can just go crazy. So here we have Fetch.ai. It has AI in the name, so of course people are going to pump it. But since it was 20 cents here, it has done a 15x all the way up to here. And that's happened since last October, middle of last October. So within the span of just four or 5 months, it has gone up that high. That's crazy. Altcoins are going to do that when we get our next alt season, when that's going to be. Maybe it's soon, maybe not, I don't know. But when that happens, this is what it's going to look like. And it'll even be more condensed as we get near the end. If we go over to Bitcoin dominance, This is important to note because when we are in alt season is when dominance starts tanking. So if you look at the bottom where the date is, January 8th was the day that all the altcoins from the 2017 bull run sold off, and they sold off hard. But going into it, this last few weeks from about the start of December to the start of January, there was a month, just 1 month, where altcoins went parabolic. And if you had any of them, it was crazy. So a couple altcoins I had at the time were Tron and DNT, and they went bananas. Some of my other altcoins didn't. I was in another altcoin called AppCoin, and I bought it because, well, if apps are going to have their own crypto, it seems like a good altcoin to get into. I didn't do as much research as I could, so fully admit, stupid moment. But that was one altcoin. It did absolutely nothing. It just kept going down. So do know there's no guarantee for altcoins. Do your own research and diversify, because maybe you have three that hit and two that miss. But if you hit on those three and they run, it can save your portfolio and make sure that you end in the green. So take from that what you will. We topped by May of 21. And here, as we were bottoming out, that's when Bitcoin started to roll over again. Bitcoin and the altcoins were running up through here. By the time it was May, and I'll show you guys this again. By the time it was early May, was right here. So even you could say almost to mid-May, and we had a big long leg doji red weekly sell signal. So anytime you get a long leg doji, there's a big move coming either way. Of course, with Bitcoin already running way up past all-time highs from 17,000 to 65,000, doing a 3.5x, something like that, we knew it was going to come back down. But going over to Bitcoin dominance, as we look at that, look where it bottomed out. So when Bitcoin dominance is getting down to these, well, this was in the mid 30s, this was in the high 30s. If we keep drawing this trend up, the next time it would bottom out, if we say maybe Bitcoin tops out by early June, we have an early bull run, then we could be topping out around this low 40-ish percentile. So should Bitcoin dominance come up a little and then start crashing, and we've yet to see it do that, right now it's still bullish, and the dominance has gone up from 51.5% to 55%. We are at yearly highs, so it could come down from here. This trend line, it's just coming from the prior peaks. Does not mean we have to hit this again. Maybe we get close and then just, again, tank. But just something to keep in mind. When dominance is tanking, that typically signals or has signaled the end of those bull runs, because that's when the altcoins take off. The other thing that's important to note is the tether dominance chart, and that is USDT.D. So tether dominance, and as we zoom out, let me make this look better for you. I drew some stuff here, but here we had the 2017 top. And guys, I want you to pay attention to the strength on the relative strength index. The 2017 top, we got below the 50 line. This was a pretty deep spike on the RSI for at the time. And again, remember that Bitcoin, we have the logarithmic regression as shown by the rainbow chart, the law of diminishing returns. On a log chart, things go up and then to the side. For any of you who paid attention to the amount of COVID infections a few years ago, that's what this looked like as well. We had a spike in the infections that were happening, and then eventually it levels off. And that's when COVID stopped becoming, or stopped being a thing as much as it was before. But when we are spiking, those are the exciting times. So over back to the chart, because we have that regression, some of these strengths of the moves won't be as big earlier on, or they won't seem that way until later. Obviously, as we go down the line, those moves are going to become a lot stronger. But here's something I want you to notice. When we had that 2019 mid-cycle top, okay, we got below the 50 line. That was a very strong move for Bitcoin. Went from 3,500 to something like 12,000. The peak before the COVID dump, we just bounced off this trend line. The first Bitcoin top, I want you guys to notice this, that we got to this line in February of 21. That's when we touched it. But when we started going sideways, look at this right here. December, January. That's when Bitcoin broke the prior all-time highs. Excuse me. That's when Bitcoin was breaking the prior all-time highs in 2017. And then it started to go sideways. The reason I want you to notice the RSI is look how we got oversold. And not until we crossed above the 50 line. Look at that date, May 10th. I've shown you that before. That's when Bitcoin started to sell off from the new high that it made, and it went down about 50%, as we showed on the chart. When it got to the 50, by that time, that's when you wanted to get out. Okay. Here we had the second Bitcoin top, and we spiked and came back down. Okay. We've gotten near the 50 a couple times underneath it. Here's what's going on right now, and this is my most bullish looking chart right here. Why I think it's very possible. Again, I don't want to get too much in the game of making predictions, but here I think it's fair to say this is just what the data is showing us. The RSI on the weekly is as low as it's ever been. It has never been down here. I mean, my God, where is it exactly? At just a little under 19. So it's as low as it's ever been, which means it's going to need time to come back to that 50 range. And so it's highly unlikely, unless we get some sort of black swan event or some sort of flash sell off that no one sees coming. But it's more likely that this is going to take time, as it always does, to get back up to this 50 level. And funny enough, that seems to coincide with the narrative that the Fed has put out, how they aren't going to cut rates at least until the summer, at the very least. That's been their message. We'll see if they stick to it. However, if that's true, and I've shown you guys, rate cuts tend to be around market tops of the different cycles, whether it's the dot-com bubble, the great financial crisis. That first rate cut was right near the market tops. Might we be getting that again, where all the stars align? It kind of seems that way to me, that we're going to stay down here, start coming back up, and then by June, who knows when they have rate cuts, maybe the relative strength index on the weekly for the tether dominance is going to be back up near the 50 again. So it's only early March. So we have 4 months till June, March, April, May, June. 4 months possibly of where we could just get some solid movement upwards. Yesterday, the market did have a little bit of a pullback, led first and foremost by the strongest, or the how should I say, the strongest moving stock in the world. Microsoft is the best stock. This stock, it has been going nutso, and in the last 5 days, something I want to show you, Nvidia, when it got up to this macro fib line, it had a pretty big sell off. I want to say something like 5%. We'll measure it out. Oh, 11%. My bad. So I have no doubt that that's probably going to bleed over into the crypto markets next week. Should this continue? Should we get a week or two of a sell off? And guys, that's not a bad thing. Something to note, at least with Bitcoin, is that when we did have a sell off after the ETF approval, that's this spike right here, when we spiked the 49,000. Hard to believe that was early mid-January. That seems so long ago now, and it really wasn't, because how much crazy things have been happening in the markets. But we sold off from the ETF approval and then quickly spiked up. We only had 2 weeks down, and we had a quick turnaround. And something I was waiting for is at least from the sell off, we typically go deeper on average, and we didn't. However, from the top, we did have this 20% drawdown. I want to make sure I get that close as possible. We did have that 20% drawdown, and that's been the level of drawdown we've been having since Bitcoin has started going up. And so I do wonder, should some of these strong stocks like Nvidia and Apple, Google continue to have little bits of sell offs, maybe we're going to get another couple weeks. Because look at this, we've had 6 green weeks. Here we had a bunch, but 4 green weeks, 5, I guess 6 green weeks, 4, 5 green weeks. So that's kind of been the average. This is a little bit out of the norm here. It's about double or triple that. So this has been about the average. I think a little bit of a pullback for a week or two would be healthy. And then maybe that's when we truly start blasting off and going crazy. We'll see. Another chart I wanted to look at with you guys is total 3. So what total 3 is, it's the total market cap excluding Bitcoin and Ethereum. This looks very similar to the Ethereum chart, by the way. Ethereum kind of resembles altcoins overall, at least generally speaking, what the altcoin market's doing. And so here's total 3, and if we have a fib drawn from the high to the low, you can notice that we recently wicked above this 0.5 line, and we're under it a little bit right now. But if we look at some of the higher fibs on where this might go, I mean, wouldn't this be crazy if the altcoin market went to 1.5 trillion or 2.5 trillion? I mean, can you imagine if the altcoins had that much money pouring in? That's what I'm talking about, where we could have double the amount of money, if not triple the amount of money going into the altcoin market. Those would be two targets I'd be looking for. So again, that coincides with Bitcoin dominance. 53.3% of all the money of crypto money is in Bitcoin right now. That might spike a little bit, and the overall amount of money in Bitcoin, that's 1.3 trillion. I mean, this could still go up quite a bit. And if we scroll up here and we take a look at some of these fib extensions, and you can see right here when we had the fib extensions, the 3618 was the closest one at around 63. Of course, the prices don't have to smack those exactly, but it got close to the 3618 because Bitcoin and crypto has diminishing returns, but still goes up. Maybe we don't get as strong of a move, up to that says 209K. Maybe it's this 2618 this time that we get somewhere near 155K. Well, if a lot of the value of that is flowing out from Bitcoin into altcoins, that's going to be incredible. And if we go to the Bitcoin rainbow chart, something we can do, we can go to the summer, and let's just take a look at some of these bands up here on the rainbow chart. These red bands, we're in the second red band. So I'd be taking a look at the orange band as my most conservative estimate, or that second red band. So if we are in, let's just say early June, look where that puts us. That puts the price of Bitcoin between 120,000 and 207,000. So near 208, like we just talked about. I know that's a gigantic range. It's about $90,000 range, 80, 90,000. But that's almost hard to imagine right now, because recently we tagged a little bit over 70,000, and we're talking about in a couple months Bitcoin going up 50,000 plus. Guys, having been through these two bull markets, I know it seems crazy, but trust me, when it happens, it's going to be hard to think. That's why it's very important right now that you have a plan, and I'm looking at you. Yes, you. Write down your plan. Pull up an email draft and write down the basics of your plan. If you have I don't know, 5 altcoins. Let's say there's 5 altcoins, even 4 altcoins you feel real good about. You've done your research on. Set price targets of where you would get out should they run. And we already talked about fetch, and fetch, who knows how high it's going to run. You could consider its market cap and multiply based off that. But let's say maybe you're looking at ICP as one of yours, okay? And you draw fibs from high to low, whatever, and you're like, you know what? It's almost at $15. Maybe I'll pull all my profits if it hits a 10x at 150. That's where I'll get out completely, 100%. But maybe halfway there at 75, I'll pull out 20% of my profits. At 100, I'll pull out 30% of my profits. Guys, please, for the love of God, make a plan. Because if you don't, having been through these two, I'll tell you exactly what happens. Even if you got in on an altcoin down here, once it starts selling off, it can get back to that price. So the altcoins, they go up quick and fast and they go down quick and fast. And you rather sell when it's going up and when the tether dominance is getting near, not to that 50 level yet on the RSI, when Bitcoin dominance is almost finished tanking, when we have a pi cycle top. I'll show you what that looks like. But that's when you want to get out. So make a plan, write down price targets, and stick to it. Because I promise you, the prices of these altcoins, at least the last 2 times, they do not go up forever and they do not stay up there forever. When we look at the strongest stock in the world, let's take a look at Microsoft here, and I'm going to prove a point to you. So let's just pick this point. August of 2016. You see that at the bottom? Where's August of 2017? So right here. Whatever. We'll just go there. 20% in a year. Okay? We could keep drawing it out, maybe be 20, 30, 40%. You get the point. When you have cryptos doing a 20x inside of a few months, that's what's called a bubble. And bubbles pop. Okay? That's how this works. This is sustainable for the strongest stock in the world. When we spike up, that is not. That's when you get those brutal sell-offs. I mean, you can even go to Amazon, which experienced that in the dot-com bubble. I mean, look at Amazon here. We can go from this price, May of 99, June of 98. So inside a year, it went up 100%. Okay? It's crazy. Is that correct? No. Yeah. 5.63. Yeah, so that's showing it's more of like a 10x. 100%. I must have done something wrong here. Yeah, here we go. It's because I was going down or something. I don't know. So here it went up 1,500%. I knew something was wrong. I was like, 100? That ain't right. Inside a year. That's a bubble. And that's why after the dot-com bubble, why it crashed so hard. Amazon crashed to the tune of 95%. So when you see altcoins having these parabolic moves going up 1,000%, 2,000% inside of a few months, that's how I know, guys, that is not sustainable. So please set your targets, make your plan, and be able to get out. It's going to be very important. You're going to regret not getting out if you don't. So going back to here, Bitcoin maybe by late May, early June. This is the most bullish outlook. Again, no guarantee this happens. Who knows? This could just be another mid-cycle top and the biggest fake out we've ever been through. But it's possible Bitcoin might be between 120 and 200 some thousand. And if so, the last thing I wanted to show you guys, it's a possible indicator for you to keep an eye on, and that is the pi cycle Bitcoin high low. We'll see if we tag this time. And if you notice, we're tagging the upper moving average line here. And so what's happened is this has been pretty good about identifying prior highs and lows. So the high that Bitcoin made in early 21, that's when it signaled buy cycle high. Called the low over here when it was around 19,000. Yes, we went lower. However, I think this is so close, it's within 1,000 or two that this did a good job of calling the buy cycle low. And it got so far under that moving average that that's when it called it. Okay. Pi cycle low, it called it back here in 2018, late 2018. Pi cycle high, it called it up here at the peak in 2017. It's done it again and again. This is the only time where we had a FACO here, where it's a pi cycle high, but then we stayed above it and went up higher. Might this be possible? Sure. Maybe we get up to a pi cycle high, the Fed cuts rates, and then they change their mind. They say, you know what, we're actually going to pause. We're not going to, or the Fed cuts rates. And they say, you know what, we're not going to keep cutting. We're actually just going to pause for a while again. And pausing rates can cause markets to go bullish. Maybe we get something like this. That's possible too. So it all depends on if the altcoins are hitting your price targets. And this is just for Bitcoin. But again, that's why I'm telling you, make a plan. Have a plan so you can at least make some money, get in the green. If you are investing right now into Bitcoin, just know that your investment plan, you might be acting more like a trade investor, and this all might be very short-lived. So just something to keep in mind. Anyways, I'm going to leave the video there for today. Hope you guys enjoyed this analysis. I'm trying to present both sides of what could happen and what to expect, some indicators to look out for. I think the pi cycle high indicator, as well as the tether dominance on the RSI getting near 50, those are two of the strongest. Of course, with Bitcoin dominance, if all of a sudden this just has a flash sell-off, maybe it hits this trend line, maybe it goes below it. But if those three things happen, or even two of those three things, I'd say that would be a very, very strong indicator that's the end. Now, very last point. Again, we had the overall Bitcoin top in November. So, and there were some altcoins that didn't top until here. So again, set your price targets, exit when it makes sense. And, if you are able to get a 10x and get out, great. And, maybe your altcoin could have got a 20x. Guys, once you sell, you want to stay out. I promise you that. What a lot of people did last time is they sold in here. They did a good job. But then when Bitcoin had that 50% dip, a lot of people got back in, and there were very few altcoins that topped later here. And a lot of people who got back in, their altcoin was done. It was done and it was not coming back up. Take a look at one of these altcoins. Okay, this one topped in March. Imagine if you bought back in when it dipped and waited for November. You would have had over a 50% loss, even if you sold near the top. So altcoins are not guaranteed to go back to their prior all-time high or above it. Some altcoins will only go up a certain percentage of it. Okay, some are not as strong as what they've done before. Something to keep in mind. People are very disappointed with XRP, Litecoin last time. So do keep that in mind. Set your price targets. At least be able to take some profit, because once the altcoins run, it'll be very short-lived. Anyways, hope you guys enjoy your weekend. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If there are any altcoins or stocks you'd like for me to take a look at in any of my videos, I do stock and crypto videos, because once we take our massive profits from crypto by gambling in an educated fashion or being trade investors at best, once we make those profits, it'll be nice to be able to roll those over into very strong stocks should we have a recession and a low within a year or two of the rate cuts that are expected. It'll be very nice to take some massive crypto profits and put them into strong stocks where that money can just grow forever. That's my general plan. Obviously, do what you want. Buy 3 different colored Corvettes, if you will, or you could take that money and let it work for you for the rest of your life as well. So just something to consider. Anyways, take care, guys. Bye bye.